Hello, so this is Chapter 5, Section 5.1, Radians. And what we're going to focus on is converting radians to degrees and degrees to radians. So just to start with, the key thing to remember is the idea with radians is that if you had a sector with its radius's length r, and if that arc was also length r, then this angle here would be 1 radian. And the other thing to realise is that, therefore, if you went round a semicircle, and this has radius r, then I would fit 1, 2, 3 and a little bit, and this little bit is the 0.14. So I would actually fit pi radiuses around there. So that's that 3.14, and obviously it continues. So there's 3 radiuses and a bit more, which is the 0.14. And what that actually means is this angle, because we're talking about that angle there, is this here. I fitted 3 of these sectors in. So if you think about it, I fitted 1, 2, 3 of them in and a little bit more, and that's why it's pi. So from this, and this is the key bit, and I would write this down, is that pi is the angle in a semicircle in radians is equal to 180 degrees, and that's degrees. And therefore, when we're looking at conversion, so we've looked at other ways of converting things, so I can think back maybe at GCSE, 8 kilometres is 5 miles, and we're quite happy working with that conversion. And there are other conversions between pounds and kilograms, which is a conflicting thing still in the UK, where things are still sometimes sold in pounds. They're not meant to be, but they are. And 2.2 is the same as pounds, is the same as 1 kilogram. So here, our big conversion is pi in radians is the same as 180 degrees. And that's the real thing that I want you to get a grasp on, as well as, which is really rewriting very similar thing, is because it's just a multiple, 2 pi is 360 degrees. So whereas I would usually say to you, rotate 360 degrees, I could now say rotate 2 pi, because I'm talking to you in radians. They are the 2 things you're going to need to know clearly for the next piece of work. I need you to copy those down, put them in a box, learn them. You really need to have got those solidly in your head. So here we have 2 angles, 7 pi over 8 and 4 pi over 15, and they're written in radians. Sometimes the angles will be as decimals, but you'll be told that they are radians, and you can write radian answers in decimals, and you will do that. One way of spotting whether something is in radians is often they will use pi, and they'll use that in ranges when we solve equations later. So this is 7 pi over 8, which is the same as 7/8 of pi, which you should be quite fluent with that, because if it's the same as saying 7/8, 7a over 8 is the same as 7/8 a. And here we can then say, well, if pi is equivalent to 180 degrees, then it would be 7/8 multiplied by 180, which you can then put in your calculator. And if I put that in my calculator, I end up with 157.5 degrees. So fairly simple. The other here, same thing. This is 4/15 pi. Well, pi is 180 degrees. So that's 4/15 multiplied by 180. And again, put it in your calculator. And my answer is 144 degrees. So converting between radians and degrees, fairly easy. Big thing to remember, pi is the same as 180 degrees. Right, moving on. We're going to do it the other way round. So now we're doing degrees to radians. Well, to do degrees to radians, what we need to do is first of all start by saying what fraction of 180 degrees is it? So that's how we'd write it. It's 150 over 180, so I'm writing it as a fraction of 180, and then I multiply it by pi. And I'm going to write this as a fraction because that's an easier way of writing it. You know, we love fractions more than we ever love a decimal. So that would be 5 pi over 6. Again, you can use your calculator to simplify the 150 over 180. You don't need to do that in your head. Then this one, so 110 over 180 times pi. So again, simplifying that, that's going to be 11 pi over 18. There we go. Done. Fantastic. So you now can convert quite happily from degrees to radians and from radians to degrees. It's not something, I'm going to be honest, that's tested tremendously, but you will find it helpful to just be able to imagine that sometimes. It does come up occasionally, but it's more used for students to have a feel.